Hey folks, I saw this meme in Mountain Goat's shitposting and noticed it confused a lot of people. I thought I'd take this time to explain what it means for those who don't understand. Let's start with the two figures, the stock photo woman and lead singer of indie rock band The Mountain Goats, John Darnielle. Notice they're wearing very similar clothing. Why is this significant? Well, why would two people be wearing similar clothes? That's right. When they're wearing uniforms, they work together. What are they working on? This question is crucial to understanding this meme. Now, I've seen a lot of speculation surrounding the meaning of the candy store. If you do just a little bit of digging, it's clear this is a reference to the Mountain Goats song, The Recognition Scene, in which the narrator and their companion, who will be missed when they're gone, break into a candy store and gobble up candy greedily in the first verse.
We broke the doorknob off the door. The door swung open easily. You sauntered into the poorly lit store and looked around lazily. We stole every bit of candy they had inside, gobbled it all up greedily on our 3-month ride. I'm gonna miss you when you're gone. I'm gonna miss you when you're gone.
That makes sense, right? John Darnielle is here. It's probably a reference to his song. Keep that in mind. We'll get back to that later. Let's look at the candy surrounding John. There's caramel, gummy bears, candy corn, gumdrops, and an assortment of candy. Let's put all those together. Caramel, gummy, bears, candy, corn, gum, drops, assortment. CGBCCGDA. If you notice, those letters all happen to be the name of musical notes. More specifically, chords. Chords to a song. Very simple chords, too. The kind John Darnielle likes to use, and as it just so happens, the exact chords used in The Recognition Scene. This further solidifies our theory that it's related to that song. In fact, think about it. Where is the candy coming from? You might say the candy store, but if you look closer, that's not the case. The caramel is dripping from John's mouth. He's providing the candy, making the song a reality. Alright, now let's see if we can decode the text on the sign. Sweet time, happy sweet, candy shop, coffee dessert, best in town. Alright, let's start with sweet time. What's something that's sweet? That's right, sugar. If we look at a sugar crystal, we'll see it contains 12 carbon atoms, 22 hydrogen atoms, and 11 oxygen atoms. That's C12H22O11. Altogether, that's 45 atoms. We know time is important here, right? What happens to be precisely 45 minutes long? That's right, the album Sweden by the Mountain Goats, the opening track of which is, you guessed it, The Recognition Scene. This can actually help us decode the bottom line of text, best in town. What town exactly? Well, the album Sweden has plenty to choose from. There's downtown Seoul, Tallinn, Queens, but let's actually look at the third track, Some Swedish Trees. The narrator mentions coming from California, but doesn't specify where.
The air around you was familiar to me now, and you were gazing westward. I was looking at you again. Yeah.
let's come back to that. The song has a notable introduction with some banter between John and then bassist Rachel Ware. John starts the song in a way that Rachel's not familiar with, and she says, "That's not how we ever start."
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, you don't want to start like that. You want me to do the thing?
That's not how we ever start.
To play a song together, you have to work together. Just like the two figures in the meme, wearing the same clothes, working together. In order to play the song, John and Rachel must agree on how to begin. Now let's think about beginnings. After all, the recognition scene begins the album Sweden. What one image perfectly encapsulates the idea of a beginning? That's right, the Fool Tarot card. The first of the major arcana, representing the first step toward fulfilling your goals. You're hopeful, you're ready to go, naive of the challenges you'll face on your journey, represented by the mountains. The Fool is also looking to the left, which on most maps is considered west. And where is the other person in some Swedish trees looking? They're gazing westward.
Gazing westward.
This might seem like a stretch, but if the All Eternals deck liner notes are any indication, John does have some knowledge of tarot cards. There's some history of the fictional titular All Eternals deck in there, a sort of inside baseball tarot deck. There's also a reference to the Tower, a card of instability and upheaval. Something you think is secure isn't. You might say a scene of realization? Let's come back to that later. Who else is portrayed in the Fool card? His little buddy, a dog. A white dog, to be precise. Ask yourself, if you were leaving California for Sweden, like the characters in some Swedish trees, you're probably taking a plane, right? Would it all be one flight, or would you have a layover somewhere? You'd probably take a connecting flight, somewhere on the East Coast. Somewhere like, I don't know, let's say Philadelphia Airport. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania also happens to be the home of, get ready, the White Dog Cafe. So named because it was the former residence of occultist Helena Blavatsky, who almost certainly used tarot cards. So, now we know that Best in Town probably refers to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, home of the White Dog Cafe, which, as you have no doubt figured out, serves coffee and dessert. Now, let's really get into the meat of things. The candy shop. Well, if you notice, it doesn't actually say candy shop, does it? John's head is covering the C. It says Andy shop. Well, what the hell does that mean? I hear you ask. Well, when do you say Andy shop? More specifically, when do you say Andy if you're not referring to an informal name of your friend Andrew? That's right, usually after saying D, as in D&D. D&D shop. I posit it's not actually a candy store at all, but a D&D store where you can find dice and source books and other tabletop RPG resources. And where there's D&D, there's Wizards of the Coast's other best-selling franchise, Magic the Gathering, a game John Darnielle loves to play. This gives us the answer to the final piece of text on the door, Happy Sweet. This is likely a reference to the Magic the Gathering card, Sweet Oblivion. This card requires the target player to take the top 4 cards from their deck and put them in the graveyard, where cards go when they die. When memory is torment, oblivion is bliss, it says. And so now we can finally decipher the conversation between the woman and John. She says, "Hi, I am Anna Gnorisis." To which John replies, "Whoa, me too." Just who is Gnorisis? Well, let's break it down. I am Gnorisis. I am Gnorisis. I am on ignore ISIS. What could that mean? Well, when someone says I'm on, it's usually followed by something else, right? I'm online. I'm on board. I'm on the same page, etc. I don't think it matters so much what specifically she's on. What matters is that John is on it too. He agrees. He says, "Whoa, I'm also on." Further indication that they're working together toward the same goal. Now, ignore ISIS. Ignore obviously meaning rejecting the knowledge of something, right? As far as ISIS goes, right? Stepping back from any problematic interpretations, what could this mean in context? Well, the answer is actually quite simple, and it ties back to someone we just discussed, Helena Blavatsky and her book, ISIS Unveiled. Now, I'm sure I don't need to explain what ISIS Unveiled is about, or how it ties into the whole of Blavatsky's work, or its role in the Theosophical movement of the late 19th century, or how the book's themes and messages relate to the album Sweden by the Mountain Goats. That's all very obvious, and I don't want to waste your time. What I will point out, however, is the full title. ISIS Unveiled, a Master Key to the Mysteries of Ancient and Modern Science and Theology. A master key. ISIS is the key. So, when the woman says, "Ignore ISIS," what she's really saying is, ignore the key. And what do you do when you ignore a key? You break in.
We broke the doorknob off the door.
And now we see what goal these two are working toward. They're about to commit the robbery of the candy store as laid out in the recognition scene. But, as we can see, they already have the candy. John is creating it. So what are they stealing? Well, remember, it's not really a candy shop. It's a D&D shop that also carries magic cards. Not just Magic the Gathering, cards that are magic, cards of divination, tarot cards. So, John manifests the candy, which is the chords to the recognition scene, thereby making it a reality. He and the woman are now the characters in that song and, by extension, the rest of the album Sweden. He hopes that inside will be the fool, because he knows the best coffee and dessert is from the White Dog Cafe in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The white dog, just like on the Fool card. He wants the beginning of their story, the story laid out in Sweden, to be hopeful and naive of the challenges that the two of them will face. But that's not how we ever start.
That's not how we ever start.
What's really inside is probably Sweet Oblivion, a card that lays out exactly what will happen to John. His deck of cards, his library stands tall and proud and strong like a tower, and it must come down. You see, he knows the trouble he and this person will face. He knows their connection can't last. This is the knowledge John tries to reject, the master key the woman implores him to ignore. But he can't. He isn't just surprised, he's lamenting. Woe is me to know this. And so, burdened by this knowledge that he's going to lose this person, he solemnly sings to himself, I'm gonna miss you when you're gone. I'm gonna miss you when you're gone.
Hurry the bottle, mama. It's grapefruit wine. Kick off your high-heeled sneakers. It's party time. The girls don't seem to care what's on, as long as it plays till dawn. No static at all. Give her some fucked up music. She